$21.44. That's how much profit, on average, an airline makes off each passenger. Multiply that by the 700 million annual pre-COVID passengers, and an airline company can pull in $15 billion per year. So where does that profit margin come from? The COVID-19 pandemic railroaded the airline industry. However, in the pre-COVID world, the United States posted the highest number of airline travelers per year, almost 800 million people in 2015. So where does all that money go? How exactly do airlines manage to squeeze that $21 profit out of your ticket? Running an airline isn't cheap by any means. You can break down the cost of running an airline into three main categories: labor, fuel, and equipment. Each of these expenses is carefully factored into ticket prices. Let's start with the human element, labor. Labor accounts for about 35% of the airline's total cost of operation. From the pilot to the baggage handler, from the flight attendant to the air traffic controller, the airline is responsible for paying the salaries and hourly wages of these individuals. Most of these salaries stay relatively steady. Perhaps a pilot or two gets a generous raise every year. It doesn't change the airline's bottom line when it comes to allocating funds for payroll. Fuel takes up 10 to 12% of the airline's total cost, and that's one they can't control. Let's take the average Boeing 747, for example, a plane that most people can name off the top of their head. On average, the Boeing 747 consumes 5 gallons of fuel per mile. While that number seems like the least fuel-efficient statistic on the planet, take into consideration that a Boeing can carry 500 plus people. If a Boeing carries 500 people 1 mile, it'll only consume 0.01 gallons of gas per person. That means a Boeing 747 is getting about 100 miles per gallon per person. Consider the average miles per gallon your car gets, and that's only transporting you and 4 other people around town. Now imagine how much fuel would be consumed if 500 of you drove across the country instead of flying. The final cost for any airline is the airplanes themselves. This includes everything from the actual plane to the maintenance that goes into operating, like parts, repairs, and replacements. Airlines will either buy or lease planes from manufacturers, and many factors go into their cost. The cheapest Boeing, the 737, sells for $87 million. American Airlines either leases or owns 872 aircrafts, making it the largest fleet in the world as of 2020. Let's say they only owned the cheap 737s. That would still be $75 billion worth of planes. In actuality, airlines own a variety of Boeings and Airbuses, the world's only airplane manufacturers. For example, the Airbus A380 comes with a near $500 million price tag. This makes it almost as expensive as Air Force One and a B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Obviously, an airline purchasing or even leasing a fleet of Airbus 380s would go out of business in a heartbeat. However, the more spacious and luxurious planes an airline can get their hands on, the more they can charge for tickets. When it comes to leasing an airplane, it works similarly to leasing a car. However, most airlines will go through a third-party leasing company for the best possible deals. Out of every 10 commercial airplanes, you can safely assume 4 of them are being leased by the airline. Leasing aircrafts also gets them in the fleet faster than buying one. Were you to buy a new Boeing today, you wouldn't get your hands on that plane for the better part of a decade. Why? Production lines are booked up several years ahead of time. Just think of the time and space needed to build a commercial aircraft. Airlines sign a 7 to 10 year contract with Boeing or Airbus and make monthly million-dollar payments. Where the money comes from is a pretty easy question to answer. It comes from travelers. About 75% of an airline's income comes from ticket sales. 15% comes from cargo shipment, mainly with the US Postal Service. The final 10% comes in bits and pieces from other services. Let's focus on the airline's cash cow, you and me, and how they play the ticket price game to maximize profits. The price of plane tickets fluctuates daily. There's a good chance the person sitting next to you paid differently for what's basically the same ticket. This is because 90% of tickets sold by US airlines are sold at a discounted price. These discounts reach as high as 2/3 off the total fare, turning a $300 flight into a $100 flight. Less than 10% of travelers ever pay full fare, and most of those travelers are last-minute business people trying to catch an important flight. It's the urgency of the flight, the thought of closing a big deal that would make the last-minute traveler okay with paying full price. Many people aren't buying tickets directly from the airlines either. In fact, 80% of airline tickets are sold by travel agencies. Those agents receive commissions per ticket sold, making up 13% of the airline's total expenses. These agencies may sell the tickets at a higher premium to maximize commissions. Airlines implement different practices to ensure they can meet their per-seat profit. The most basic of these practices is the break-even factor. Every airline knows precisely how many seats on a flight must be sold to cover their costs for that particular flight, to break even. Selling a few more tickets than the break-even point is where the profits begin to roll in. The body of an aircraft can only hold so many seats, and airlines are left with a decision to make. Airlines can add seats to the plane and expand their economy or coach section to sell more tickets for cheap. The attraction of cheap plane tickets is enough to fill the plane with travelers who don't care much about their in-flight experience. On the flip side, airlines can choose to remove seats and expand their business or first class section. They can sell these seats at a premium price to those willing to pay for a more comfortable workspace in flight. Striking balance between business and economy class is one of the many keys to airline profits. Another way airlines ensure profits is by overbooking flights on purpose. While this may sound devious, there is rational reasoning behind it. While the average traveler or vacationer isn't about to skip their flight, there are enough last-minute business people who never show up. Perhaps a cross-country meeting was canceled at the last minute, or something important came up at the office. Unfortunately, some business people will book tickets on multiple flights to ensure they make it to their destination. Obviously, they can't be on multiple flights at once, and that seat goes unused and unpaid. To counter this, airlines will sell more tickets than they have available seats on a flight. You can rest assured, however, that airlines don't just overbook flights willy-nilly. They've paid close attention to which flights have a high number of no-shows and only overbook those. Most of the time, this practice works perfectly, and you'd never know you were flying on an overbooked flight. However, in the instance that too many people show up to fly, airlines will ask for volunteers to give up their seats. These volunteers are often single flyers and are easily coerced with a free ticket on a different flight, ultimately getting to the same destination. In almost all cases, people are happy to comply, and the airlines end up with more volunteers than needed. However, in the rare case that nobody volunteers, the airline is forced to bump people off the flight. Federal regulation requires the airline to make accommodations for those passengers and compensate them for their troubles. The profits secured from overbooking flights grossly outweighs the losses associated with the cost of bumping passengers off flights, though. The first frequent flyer program began in 1976 and was created by Texas International Airlines. The idea was simple: the more you fly, the more free stuff you get. Free seats, snacks, and meals turned into hotel stays, concerts, and more. How are airlines making money off giving away free seats? Here's how. Yes, you can build up your points bank by flying, but some hotels will offer bonus points when you stay with them. These hotels buy frequent flyer points from airlines and then use them as a marketing tool to get travelers to stay with them. Everything's a gamble, but the hotels are confident that the opportunity for bonus miles will be enough of a selling point. Hotels, however, aren't the only bulk buyers of frequent flyer miles. Banks, retailers, and rental companies also have their hands in the pot. Think of it like an advertising campaign. Instead of running a commercial, companies can offer frequent flyer miles to attract new business. It's no question that the COVID-19 pandemic grounded the airline industry. How badly did airlines really do during 2020? Let's look at American Airlines numbers, for example. In 2019, American Airlines brought in $45 billion in revenue. That's up $1 billion from the previous year and $3 billion since 2017. After covering their expenses and taxes, American Airlines walked away with a net profit of $1.6 billion. The numbers in 2020, well, they didn't look so good. American Airlines brought in $17 billion in total revenue for a staggering 62% decrease. They would ultimately lose $8 billion after expenses and taxes. Once the world went into complete lockdown, the United States government granted major airlines $25 billion in loans and bailouts. As more travelers become fully vaccinated, it's no surprise that the travel industry is beginning to bounce back. While it may be a slow crawl back to sustainable profits, airlines worldwide can stop holding their breath.